All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Marut. I'm the director of marketing here at Revenova. We're getting started today with talking about how AI agents won't fix bad data. So today I've got Josh Courtwright from Salesforce. I've got Johan Abadi from SalesIntel. We'll be joined here shortly by Tim Boland as well from Revenova, our CFO. But first, let's just start with a quick round of intros. Josh, you want to get started for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mike, nice to see you again. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. So, I'm Josh Courtwright. I'm one of the partner solution engineers here at Salesforce. And one of the things that we're responsible for is working with our great partners like Revenova and finding ways to bring a lot of our new innovations to market. So, we talk a lot about Agent Force. That's our AI agent product here. We talk a lot about Data 360, bringing that context to agent. And really what my goal is to help kind of debunk a lot of those myths and find those use cases so we can bring those to our joint customers. So it's something that's really exciting. It's really fun to work through these problems with our joint customers. It's kind of a new area, so it's kind of blazing a trail a little bit. So excited to be here. Excited to talk through this a little bit.
All right. And Johan.
Yes, Johan Abadi with SalesIntel. I'm the head of demand gen and revenue strategy at the company. We provide data, a lot of data, and what we like to call AI-ready data. And I don't think that you can talk about automation, AI agent, agentic solutions without good data to feed it to. So this is where our expertise is at, and looking forward to chatting about this with you guys.
All right. Sweet. Thank you so much to the both of you for joining us today. Like I said, Tim Boland will be joining us here shortly for the Revenova side to kind of be able to talk about AI and our implementation of it. But really, this webinar is the pipeline playbook for logistics and B2B revenue teams. So, this is really built for people who are in supply chain, whether you're a fleet shipper or a brokerage or anywhere in between. This is a great space for you to be in. And just some quick administrative stuff for everyone here on the call today or on the webinar today that we have a Q&A section where you can submit your own questions. We'll get to them kind of throughout the webinar, and then we'll have about 15 minutes or so at the end for just kind of running through those. The chat feature is not available at this time. So if you have anything that you guys want to throw in or have us talk about, make sure to put it in the Q&A section. Without further ado, excuse me, I'm going to need a glass of water myself, Johan. It's a good call. Without further ado, let's just kind of jump right into the basics. Let's start here. Josh, in your experience, what are AI agents? I mean, you just talked about it in your intro. Agent Force through Salesforce is just such a huge piece of where Salesforce is going. What are agents and kind of what are the basics there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the semantics of the word seem to change from person to person. So this is a conversation I find myself having a lot. The way that I rationalize it in my mind is I try to keep it very simple, right? There's really like three buckets, if you will, that are really critical to understanding what AI agents are. And it starts with the first bucket, which is automations, right? Automations are something that have been around for a long time. So when X or Y happens, we need X or Y to happen. And this is something that's been native to the Salesforce platform via Apex, which is custom code. We have flows, which are code, that are clickable code, right? And those automations have been really important in driving us towards more efficient working methods. When the introduction of AI happened a couple years ago, a lot of us saw us using a chat interface, on ChatGPT or Gemini and prompting it to get information that will help us be more efficient in our day to day. And when I think about those early stages of AI, I still use those all the time, by the way. I think they're very valuable. A lot of the burden falls to me, falls to the user who is prompting and asking for that information. And really what it becomes is like a supercharged smart search engine where you really have to think through the information that you want, prompt that LLM, and then that LLM is going to bring that information back to you. Enter AI agents. This is really the next generation of the AI wave that we're on here. And AI agents, in short, in my mind, are really autonomous assistants in the way that we do our day-to-day work. So let me give you an example here. I use AI agents to make me a bit more proactive and reason through a lot of complex problems that I might have had to do on my own previously. So let's take an example where maybe I'm a seller and I need to sift through lots of data to identify opportunities for my business or identify potential leads for my business. AI agents are going to use LLMs in that reasoning engine to help us identify where those opportunities are, identify where their business white space is, and it's going to do it all for me. But I'm going to have to be the one to come and touch that information and make a decision on whether or not to reach out to that lead or not. So, in short, I think about AI agents and I think about them as autonomous, proactive assistants that do a lot of the heavy lifting for me, but don't do all of the work for me because I know that the human touch is a big element in the logistics industry and really in any industry. So, Mike, Tim, I'd love to tee this up for you all as logistics is really your domain and you've got Artemis out there, right? What are some of the things that your customers have talked to you about when it comes to AI agents? That human touch is something that I've been harping on that's really important. What are you seeing out in the market?
I mean, to that point, logistics is built on relationships, that human touch. Like it's not going to say, I'm not going to say handshake agreements necessarily, but there's so much in-person interface between people that we wanted to make sure we're not taking that away by building Artemis, our own native AI agent within Revenova TMS. And so, as part of that, we were doing research with our customers, with the prospects as well. And what are the workflows that could just be made simpler by bringing in an AI agent? So, we found, we launched Artemis back in January 2025. That first iteration was fairly simple, where if you get an email that has information about a load that is, going from point A to point B, let's say, Chicago to Seattle, right? And they have all these different details. They sent somebody sends in that email with all the load information, and Artemis will build it automatically rather than having to go back and forth and trying to figure it out. It'll happen within seconds as opposed to having to enter in all that information manually. As we have progressed, we've gone beyond just that capability where now you can build your own loads inside Artemis by providing it that information, in a list view type of format. It also includes capacity management and seeing, okay, I've got trucks that are, if I'm a broker, I've got trucks that are available, in this area. They would be perfect for this load and do kind of that automatic load matching program with available capacity. But it's something that we have developed in conjunction with many of our customers, as well as some prospects as well, and really making it a true partnership where we still keep that human interaction in terms of building those relationships between brokers and carriers and shippers, but also making sure that the workflows, to your point before, are moving as quickly and as efficiently as possible with the least amount of errors. We still want to make sure that everything is correct, obviously, but by nature of just implementing new technology, there's some growing pains there for sure. Tim, what else would you want to add about that?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on. And everything that you described, the intent of it is to give time back to the employees to go have those conversations and do the human touch. So this is all ways to take the automation of the hands-on keyboards when your employees are not talking to the customers, give them that time back to go do that. So it's really just a way to actually do more of the human touch and not less. And I think that's the real key for what we're trying to solve with Artemis.
Hmm.
I love that. I think it's an excellent description of exactly what AI agents should and can be, right? They're going to solve those complex problems for you that are not linear and give you more time back to spend, whether it be with customers or whether it be with your partners and really continuing to cultivate those relationships.
Now, real quick, Tim, you just joined us. Do you want to do a quick intro for yourself and kind of tell the audience who you are, what you do at Revenova?
Absolutely, yes. Tim Boland, CFO here at Revenova. Been here a little over a year now, and was actually on our Revenova town hall that ran long. We couldn't jam all the excitement into 1 hour for a town hall, so apologies. Was presenting on that and ran a little bit over, but excited to be here. And I joined this industry really in the last year. I came from other B2B SaaS platforms. And being able to connect with you all over the last year has been really amazing and gotten up to speed quite quickly, but still learning. But I love the technology and how it solves these types of problems to give that time back, like I mentioned, because I think that's pretty much what every employee will say unanimously is that if they had less time of doing the data entry type work and go out and work with others to solve real problems, I think that's when it gets exciting.
Awesome. And Johan, it looked like you want to jump in there, talk about the kind of foundation and the basics of AI agents.
Yeah, which is well, there are a few things that you have to throw at it. Obviously, it's not that simple. Otherwise, everyone would have solved that equation already. But yeah, good data. You have to have the good data and good depth in the data so that you offer good context to those agents. And I would say, do not overplay your hand. Don't try to automate something that is complex and few humans have not figured out well yet, because troubleshooting it is going to be really, really hard. I've seen that fail many, many times, where it's like we have not solved that equation. Maybe these agents will be able to do it for us. Doesn't work out quite well in our experience. But what we focus the most on is, again, if you don't have good data, your automation is not going to be that efficient and even less effective. And what Tim was talking about is giving more time to people to do the job that they are best at. We're on Team Human. I know it sounds weird because we talk about AI ready data, but what our CEO mentioned yesterday, he was at a southbound last week, and they had a study claiming that salespeople spend less than 25% of their time talking to customers. I mean, this is wild. Imagine the 75% that of the time that they are spending doing other stuff. Imagine if we can give them the data or give the agents the data to allow them to wipe out most of that time and spend 50, 60, 75% of the time with the customers. Would be amazing the type of effectiveness that we'll be able to generate, and CFOs like Tim would be in heaven, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And I love the um talking about the cleanliness of the data. I think it's that and the processes, right? You mentioned that it's not going to be a magic pill that AI comes in and solves something that's not working.
Oh, I think Tim cut out there. But to finish his point, it's not that's the whole basis of this webinar, right? You want to have clean data, and Johan, to your point, making sure that the data has as much context as possible. So when you talk about context, like what sort of details are important within data? Let's assume that it is clean.
Yeah, so we have several layers of data that we offers. We talk about, so we have firmographics data, so the type of companies you're interacting with, and the location, the size, the number of employees, the industry that they are in, the next codes are important for many people. Then you have the technographics data. What type of tech stack are they using? Can you help them with it? Is it complementary? Do you have to displace someone? It tells you a lot about how you are going to approach the interaction with them. There are the contact data that most people are looking at. They want emails and phone numbers. What is unique about our platform is that we do not give you contacts if we don't have business email tied to it. So we don't do the Gmail, we don't do the AOL, we don't do the Yahoo email accounts. I mean, yes, it can inflate the number of contacts that you can promote on your website, but you are not going to be very successful reaching out to them. Then there is signals, what we call signals. And some signals are important are, you get funding. You have hires, you are opening a new branch, you are launching a new product, and overall activities that we can detect, not only third-party intent, with our own intent. We have 60,000 topics that we track. We have Bombora layered in as well. So we put that in along with also news, that are specific to your company. So all of these layers, when you combine them, you really have contextual information on what really matters. You can go after your ICPs, companies look good, that look like the ones who are good customers of yours. So combining all of this and reaching out to them at the right time is what really we help people with. And the last thing that I would highlight is we give you context, we give you depth, we give you data, but we'll also help you personalize the outreach to the buying center. So we have an AI agent that builds the buying center for you so that you don't single thread, but multi-thread from the get-go.
That's awesome. And so have you seen AI deployments and projects stall without that sort of, uh, uh, I'm sure without clean data, but even without that context too?
Yes, because you reach out to people, it's like, Mike, I'm pretty sure you care about demand gen. Look at me and be, yeah, sure, yeah, this is my day-to-day stuff. Tell me something I don't know, or reach out to me about something that really, really matters to me today. So if I see that Revenova is launching or is launching an extension Artemis right now, I will mention that in my outreach because I know it's one of the core things that you are going to be pushing for the next few months. It makes the interaction a lot more relevant. We are contextually relevant in our outreach, and this is what we're saying about intent and signals.
Johan, I want to quickly ask you because you made a couple of points that really stood out to me, and that's how important context is for these AI agents, right? We want to make sure that their outputs are as accurate as possible. And the only way that we can do that is making sure that the context that feeds it is really good as well. And I know that SalesIntel collects a lot of data about potential customers and whoever that might be. But one thing that kind of gets overlooked and something that we have to have a lot of conversations about here at Salesforce is how do we get that data available for AI agents that might be on the Salesforce platform? Previously we've used APIs a lot of the time to bring data over from those silos over to, different platforms. But there's a lot of different avenues that exist out there now. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you all are thinking about bringing data and making it available for AI agents, no matter what the platform is, or using that data in any sort of AI platform.
I gotta start. So we are doing raw files, so we can give you files and we can basically format them in whatever way or shape you want, so that you can slice and dice it. Your data science team can slice and dice it the way they want. We integrate with Snowflake's, Databricks. We also offer API, but MCP is coming very quickly as well. I'm not going to disclose something that I'm not supposed to disclose, but we're actively working to have MCP connections also available with our application.
Sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
you had both said something too, Josh and Johan, that stood out to me was I think coming into this, I was thinking about time back as data entry, right? But and I have no idea
Oh, got cut off again. We'll get back to him when he gets back on. But as far as
with
yeah, oh, there he is. Go ahead, Tim.
I'm gonna have to join by my phone at this rate. My computer doesn't like Zoom apparently. But all I was gonna say is that of that 25%, that's
Oh, so close.
Right when he gets to the punchline, right?
Every time, every time.
sales.
Um, ooh, all right. So I'm gonna go ahead and mute him real quick. But there you go. There he is. All right. So as we're talking about AI agents and AI data, I mean, and the foundation of these things, for when it comes to like logistics companies, we're always talking about obviously you want contact information for people. Johan, you want context. The context that we've seen in this industry is quote information, capacity information, truckload details, like, is it a 53-foot, you know, regular truck? Is it a reefer that, oh, Tim, you're sideways now. But anyway, so there's so much underlying data beyond just the name and contact info that, provide that context to really kind of at least not just get your foot in the door, but then to your point, Johan, of, making sure that if you're talking to someone that you truly understand what their challenges are, what your solution is and how it can help them, right? And so when we talk about logistics in that way, it becomes very data centric, where historically it's obviously been very relationship centric. And it's kind of like bringing those two pieces together into under one umbrella, I should say. But yeah, Tim, I don't know if you wanted to kind of throw your question back in there.
Sure, sure. This should work better now, but not ideal. So, anyways, apologies for that. But I think I connect with what you were just saying to what I was going to say as far as those connections are only meaningful if it's talking to people that are interested in buying what you're selling, right? So, if that 25% of time speaking to customers or prospects is with people that, the intent data or other things were mismatched or not following your ICPs, that's also time that you can get back with better data and better AI processes here that we're talking about. So it's not just getting time back from data entry, but also more meaningful connections with people that want to hear what you're selling. So that was the only point I was going to make.
I'll add to this, and Tim and Mike, you made it. I usually I use a somewhat controversial dating analogy for this. If you are trying to go out with someone who is not on the market, they are already in a couple, you can go as hard as you can. It's going to be really, really hard to break that bond that they already have. This is why we keep talking about signals. And I know a lot of people have actually soured on signals. They've been sold that this intent data is going to solve the pipeline problems. I think that using signals in isolation is not going to help you. Using signals with depth, with context, is really what will allow you to focus on in-market companies. So when you tie signals to the right type of accounts that you want to go after and that are really your true bringing AR to you, they are renewing and growing with you, you are dedicating the extra time that you have on the right type of opportunities. And this is not easy to do, let's put it that way. But once you have found the equation, you can grow.
So, Josh, I want to toss it over to you. What sort of workflows have you seen work? Because there are so many different functionalities for AI agents. Have you seen things that have maybe I'll say maybe worked better than others, or certain workflows that you've seen kind of work across, you know, or I guess cross industries that have, succeeded?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, fortunately for me, I get to see a lot of different partners do a lot of different things. So, something I didn't mention at the top is I'm very industry agnostic. So, I get things from the marketing domain to transportation to sales. And it's really cool because you get to see a lot of the ideas that are kind of forming in a lot of these executives and product managers' heads. And so, some of the things that I try to tell partners all the time is, hey, when you try to boil the ocean or you try to pick a use case that you might have that is really big and very complex, and Johan, you mentioned it earlier, if you don't do it today, it's going to be really difficult for an agent to do it, right? And so making sure that you find use cases and find opportunities that I call that are high value and really low hanging fruit to kind of get your feet wet and get those reps in so you can build up to those larger use cases. And so, Mike, to answer your question more specifically, one thing I just worked on very recently was, hey, we get a lot of customer success data. We get signals about how things are going in this post-sale world. And how are we going to use that information to help us make those post-sale insights, pre-sales revenue generating opportunities? And so one of the ways that we came up with was using AI agents to potentially find ways to process information in bulk. So using that information to drive signals for pre-sales teams, right? And so all of that together creates new opportunities that you might not have thought of before, but also using it as somewhat of a pipeline generation tool. So that's a larger example, but I think it speaks to what I'm trying to get at here, which is what are those processes that are very manual? Maybe you're looking through reports, maybe you're looking through dashboards, or Tim, I heard you mention maybe you're entering information directly into your CRM. Finding ways to make that more efficient and produce information directly within the flow of your work is something that's going to be very important moving forward. And I think that's really where these AI agents are heading is logging into Slack or Teams or email or whatever you use and having something right there that says, okay, this is where you should focus your day and focus your time. So going from 25% of time being with customers to maybe 50 to 70% of the time. And oh, by the way, you have all the information about your customer right there at your fingertips so that you can be more well equipped and more knowledgeable when you go and meet with them. So we're seeing a lot of things like that. We're seeing a lot of marketing automation. There's a lot of cool things that are out there. But like I said, it's starting small for your business, finding that low hanging fruit that's got to be high value for you all, and working up from there.
It's funny you mentioned that kind of that exercise. I had a similar conversation maybe 6 months ago with someone from the Jacksonville port, where they had their team do an exercise of, write down everything you do day to day, week to week, right? And where can AI fit to do those tasks for you? So then you can move on to like the things that you want to be doing, the things that you need to be doing strategically or more big picture. And I've always found that to be an interesting, exercise to do just because it kind of helps you reframe, okay, am I truly using my time as best as I can? In my context as director of marketing, am I driving enough pipeline to our sales team? Can I use an AI agent to help me do the administrative stuff that needs to get done? There's no doubt about it, but maybe we can have something else, have a machine do that, and so I can focus on thinking more down the road, 6 months, 9 months, a year from now. Okay, we need to start planning our marketing strategies now. Logistics teams are thinking the same way. I mean, when you go into RFP season or produce season, you got to be thinking a few months ahead of time. Okay, how can we best, pitch ourselves to these shippers and say, hey, we can help you out on run these lanes from, I'll just use Seattle to Chicago route again, or Southern California, where I'm just thinking about produce now. Southern California or Mesa, Arizona, where there's so much produce being grown that needs to get across the country, or get to Chicago, get to New York, get to Philadelphia. Okay, how can we position ourselves now and make sure that our processes are, I'll say, pristine, for lack of a better word, and I like alliteration like that. Making sure that our processes are streamlined as best they can. That way, when RFP season comes, we need to fill out all these forms. An AI agent can knock that out for us, and then we can start making the call. Hey, we just sent it in. I saw you guys posted it on social media or sent out a request on via email. Ours is already in your inbox, as opposed to taking a few days to knock that out or bringing in a million people and pulling all of them away from whatever work they need to be doing. And, making sure that you can get that done quickly, but also making sure, kind of going back to Johan's point, having the right context in place. Hey, here's all of our historical data that we were able to pull using an AI agent that would have taken hours of work to pull all these different things, all these different reports, but we were able to do it in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, double check the work, and then here you go. Here's your proposal.
What I'm hearing you say is throughput,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
That's we talk a lot about ROI, and I think the change in mindset of how we think about ROI, it's not really activity anymore. It's like output and outcomes. And, Mike, you were saying something that resonated with me is like, I was thinking the other day about, hey, what is AI meant to me other than the fact that I can do research significantly more faster? But, when we work with customers or partners, what used to be like maybe three max because we're working on a number of different things simultaneously that take time, it can be like five or six. Your throughput goes up. And, I'm kind of in this pre-sales organization as well. And so, I think about that from a sales persona for a moment and thinking about it from a logistics persona for a moment. Imagine what more you could do if you could produce more, be more reliable, and really be more trustworthy, right? Like trust is a big thing in human relationships. And if they know you can get it done and they know you can get it done fast, I think that's going to be something that keeps them coming back to you, right?
It's funny you bring that up. So I put one of our polls in the chat maybe 15 minutes ago, and we've had a handful of responses. The number two response being, or I'm sorry, the question being, what best describes your current experience with AI agents in your go-to-market or operation strategy? The number two answer from the people who are on the webinar today, that they are using AI tools, but struggling to connect them to pipeline or revenue outcomes. So kind of to your point, like, hey, it's not just about activities anymore. It's really talking about, okay, what's the throughput? What's the outcome of this? And sometimes I've also found this, at least from a marketing lens, it might not be immediate. The outcome that you're looking for might be down the line where it's like, oh, we can tie it back, right? And so you want to make sure your data is clean and threaded and making sure that you have everything connect the way it's supposed to. But yeah, that you're driving more output there.
Tim, I'd be curious to get your perspective on that. One of the questions that I constantly toil with is, how are executives, CFOs thinking about RI? So how are you thinking about our ROI and what are some of the considerations that maybe you are thinking about when it comes to measuring that impact for your organization?
Yeah, I think you used the right word, throughput, right? I think when it comes down to what an executive team's looking at, what the board of directors might be looking at, whoever it might be, outside investors, right? They're going to look at a company and value it based off of the throughput of the amount of resources that they're using and the revenue outcomes that come from that, right? So if you have 50 brokers today and you've been typically doing X amount of revenue, and all of a sudden, it like Mike said, it won't be overnight, but you're really able to show a trajectory and a history of here's what a broker did on average over 6 months, over 9 months before we instituted these processes. And as those became established, now you're seeing 70% more production from those same headcount. And it just shows the ability to not only be able to produce more per headcount and per person, but it then speaks to the intangible piece of they must be having more time to go and do the more meaningful conversations. If they're able to produce that much more, people are trusting the data from the AI agents, and they're finding those missing loads that they couldn't get to because they ran out of time, and they're booking those based off of their conversations and having agents doing work while they're also on the phones talking to people.
Go ahead, Johan. I've been talking a lot, so.
No, there are also, I would say there are also some very specific things that you can do to produce pipeline that we have seen bunch of our customers leverage over time is go after your champions, the ones who have moved from one company to another. It's a very direct path to some added net new logos and revenue that you haven't thought about. We talked about trust before. Happens quite a lot. You can also when someone like Tim joins a company, Tim is coming with a mandate to change stuff, to implement new things. Make sure that you are interacting with Tim and you understand what he needs to implement at Revenova when he starts. Because within the first 90 days, there are a bunch of things that you will want to implement. If you are on the radar screen, you get a shot at it. And what we're seeing is happening a lot as well is around some specific focus or news that has been released on, the CEO is going to say, we're going to push that initiative for the next 6 months. Tie it into your outreach. You're going to get more meetings. And the final one is the competitive takeover or a new tech has been installed and you complement that tech. These five motions build pipeline all the time when you multi-thread and you go after the right type of companies. So
Yeah, it's a great point. I like the problem solving point and the intent or signals of what some new executive or things like that can entail, right? Because if you know your ICPs and you know the problems that they all typically face, and you know that there's change happening at a company, those are going to be the first things that are going to be figured out and potentially changed. And it's a great way to dive into a conversation and get a good, meaningful response. So I like that a lot.
Tim, I want to go back to something that you said in one of your other discussion points around trusting the agent. And what does that actually look like? Like, over the last year and a half, 2 years, we've heard so many different AI vendors coming out of the woodwork, right? They're all, to providing a solution to solve for, this, that, or the other. Um, but we've also seen some adoption hesitation. And so can you kind of speak to the trust aspect of it? How do you build that trust where it's easy to do it with a coworker, right? But with an AI agent that is, kind of a pseudo coworker, how do you kind of achieve that same goal?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. I think first when picking the vendor, right, understanding their security, how they're built, how the MCP or the LLM or whatever it may be is being utilized, so that you know where your data is going. It's not out there being trained on, right? That's one of the great things about Artemis is how contained it can be. And but then I think from actual uses of the agent and gaining that trust of the agent, I think you thinking of it as a coworker or somebody that reports to you, right, is actually a good way to think about it. When you first hire somebody, you're going to spend a lot of time training, and I think you absolutely have to do that with your AI agents, and you also have to keep checking in and reviewing the results, right? So it's trust but verify, and the amount of high confidence in the production of the LLM or the usage of the agent can come down, or the amount that you have to have the human in the loop can be reduced over time. And I think the ability to manage that and have a system that allows you to, more or less check everything early on and then check less and less based off confidence scores that you can review and trust is the best way to do it, and really staying involved and really honoring that trust but verify and working with the agent consistently.
Josh, Johan, any additional thoughts there to kind of, springboard from what Tim was saying?
Tim mentioned something that I think goes unnoticed a lot of the time. And, it happens anytime with a new product, which is security, where your data is going. And Tim, you mentioned it, making sure you're picking something that is not sending your data to an LLM so it can train on it. And this is a conversation I have with a lot of our partners. Here at Salesforce, one of our number one value is trust. And what's the quickest way to lose trust in this world? Data breaches, making sure your data is going somewhere where it shouldn't be, right? And so one of the things that we do with our Agentforce product, we call it the Agentforce platform because security and trust is built into that. And we do things like, Johan, if we were going to send your information to an LLM, we're going to mask it because we don't want your social security number going to one of these large language models, right? So I think that when it comes to picking a vendor and when it comes to thinking about security, I think it's nice to have kind of a one-stop shop with everything built in there, whether it be Artemis, whether it be Agentforce. But that's just something that I constantly encourage our partners to consider, which is, hey, how are you handling security? What have you thought about security? How are you going to monitor it? And those outputs, how are you going to continue to make those outputs better? And so that conversation is something we have quite a bit, and something that I think Salesforce's Agentforce platform does so well is it allows you to capture all of those in one, and it allows you to not have to think about it too much. Whereas, if you decide that a bolt-on solution is best for you, that's totally fine, but there's just a lot more variables to consider within that process.
Yeah, security is something that I have talked about with a lot of friends, cybersecurity space. They are going to have a field day in the next 5 years, that's for sure. But I would say I said it earlier is don't overshoot it. Don't try to boil the ocean. I mean, don't go after really complex processes you do not comprehend very, very well because you're just going to faceplant. The crawl, walk, run is very relevant here, and it builds trust with you and not only the agentic platform and all the agents that you are working with. I can tell you, I use AI a lot. It changes every 2 weeks what you can do with those tools. It's pretty astonishing. So if you spend a lot of time trying to do something really, really hard and the output is disappointing, you are not going to help yourself. But if you find these very, very few issues that are they are just sucking a lot of time out of your day, and they are not that complex, but you can have an agent cut off 10, 15, 20% of wasted time a week, then you are going to have something that you can build on. So focus on those. Job to be done is what you have to understand well, I think, to to get the right agent for the right job.
Johan, I love that. Job to be done is the exact framework that we use to identify those use cases. What is it that we want to do? What's going to trigger it? What needs to go into that? And I think that when you can break it down into those bite-sized pieces, like you were describing, you were setting yourself and your company up for success like no other. And I think it's critical, especially in this ever-changing time where AI is advancing rapidly almost daily at this point, making sure that you ground yourself and your company's processes within those kind of units of work.
And one last thing I'll add there, because I really like it, is the crawl, walk, run, right? Going back to that, if to get that trust of the employees to use a new tool, if you can simply just pick one thing that you can make a quick win that will automate it, it'll be successful, and they'll see that trust build. Then the ideas will start flowing. Oh, I could do this, I could do that, I could do this, right? But you just have to get that one quick win to get the ball rolling and have it be not so scary, quite frankly. And then it can really get going from there.
I want to tie this back to I put in a second poll in the chat here about 10 minutes ago, basically around what's your number one challenge when using AI agents for pipeline generation? I mean, we already talked about kind of proving the ROI of it. But one of the other challenges that people seem to have is integrating it with your existing tech stack. So whether that's your CRM, for us, your TMS, um, you know, I guess what are some solutions around that, and why is it important to make sure that your tech stack talks to itself, right? Talks to all the different pieces, whether it's bolt on or built in, why is that important for so many users?
I'd like to take a stab at this one because I think it's something that Salesforce has done very well over the years. And one of the things that we've realized is that, our customers out there, as much as we would love them to use Salesforce and only Salesforce, they probably don't do that. There's ERP systems that are out there. There's different solutions that exist. And so, earlier where we talked a little bit about getting context over to your system of work. And, when we talk about the system of work in this context, it's Salesforce. So, at Salesforce, we've got our sales product, we've got our service product, we've got marketing. But really, what we realized is that those extra systems, those systems in Salesforce, all of that data kind of needs to pool and work together in order to make AI agents most efficient, right? And so one of the ways that we've done that is make our system very open and very extensible. So if you want to connect to it via API, you can do that. We've rolled out a lot of MCP opportunities for partners and customers alike to bring that information over. One of the other things that we're considering is, hey, there's going to be other platforms with AI agents. So how can we make sure that those agents work together and work together effectively? So agent to agent is something that's going to be important coming up. And lastly, it's how do we orchestrate all those agents together? And it's something I use all the time. I call it an army of agents. How do we make that army of agents go towards the problem, right? So I think there's a lot of different mechanisms that we can use in order to make sure that things are working together appropriately. But one of the things that we talk about a lot here at Salesforce, and that I'll plug here, is that with Agentforce, that's directly on the Salesforce platform. So that AI tool and those AI agents are directly where you work. So it already has access to that information, and you just got to pull information from other places, right? So all of that together is just, when you're thinking about where you want to use AI and what AI tools you want to use and what vendors you want to use, I would definitely consider extensibility in that ecosystem as well.
Johan, Tim, anything else you want to add to that?
I'll let him go and I'll finish.
All right, mine'll be pretty short, but I think the other thing I was going to mention previously is everything we're talking about this call is really a well-knit process on the Salesforce platform, right? So the ability to do things like use Artemis for a few quick wins and really good specialized logistics, but then SalesIntel or Agentforce for other things, right? The ability to mesh all that together in one place for the AI agents to use is a really cool and great opportunity.
Yeah. Interoperability, it's everything. Yes. If you don't have MCP APIs, or if you don't have the ability to get the type of format for the deliverables you are looking for in terms of data, good luck. It's just not going to work very, very well. I'm an accidental marketer. I'm a chemist originally by trade, but when you do data science, you do a lot of data wrangling. If you have different data coming from different systems, the systems were not meant to work with each other. The labels don't look alike. They don't mean the same thing. This part is usually under estimated before you do integration between systems. So my guess is MCP LLMs are going to help a lot, and the agent force agentic framework will probably get a lot of people to move a lot faster once they have figured out how to leverage this data better and those agents better.
All right. Now we are up on 12:45 Central Time, my time. So we got about 15 minutes left here in the webinar. I wanted to make sure that we made time for the Q&A portion. Right now, it looks like we only have one question here in the chat, but feel free to put in additional questions. We'll just kind of keep chatting through this. We have a handful of things that we could always talk about. But one of the things that is coming through here, Johan, is can you push signals through like a direct integration as opposed to building out a connector, whether it's API or flat file?
Yes, we can. Yes, we
Awesome.
can. Basically, I
Awesome.
mean, you can use it in whatever way you want, as long as you have access to our data, underlying data. It could go through Snowflakes. It could go to. We are pushing direct. We integrate directly with Salesforce. We integrate directly with Outreach. We integrate directly with SalesLoft. There are many tools we integrate directly with. So yes, you
Cool.
can.
Great. And I put in the final poll slash quiz here. Poll, I guess. They label it polls and quizzes, but put in the final poll here about AI investment priorities for the rest of the year. And so far, the number one answer is workflow design and process orchestration, as opposed to looking at AI agent tools and platforms. So it's kind of like building that foundation, at least the way I'm interpreting it, building that foundation that the AI agents will be working off of, right? So it kind of leads, perfectly into this question I had for you, Josh. When someone is starting out, where where do they start? Where like what's the best way to kind of build out that foundation? That way, when they're ready for AI, it works as intended.
It's a great question. It's a common question and it's a tough question. And it kind of depends on, where each of these companies are. So I'll tell you what I've seen work a lot. And so prior to joining Salesforce, my life was in consulting. So a lot of times I would hear from, different clients and such that would tell me, hey, Josh, we've got this thing going on. We're not sure how to make it more efficient. What do we do here? And so a lot of those conversations started with just, okay, what's going on? What are you trying to fix? So I always say begin with the end in mind, right? You need to make sure that you are working towards a tangible goal and working towards setting yourself up for success. But that goal is going to be your North Star that guides you there. So that brings me to my second point, and I think Johan made it very clear earlier, which is don't boil the ocean and crawl, walk, run. This AI tool is still relatively new. It's in its infancy. And the quickest way to make sure that you are going to flounder and it's going to be tough is taking something that is massive and trying to condense it into like a singular workflow. So I like to tell people, make sure that you are focused on those high value, low hanging fruit. But as Johan mentioned earlier, the job's to be done. Like break it down into units of work, make sure that you are clear on what those units of work are, and the rest will take care of itself. The final thing that I try to make sure that I tell people all the time, if they're starting from zero, if they're trying to get into the AI realm, which is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's things that we do each day. Like, if I had an agent to make breakfast, I would, but they don't have robots that are affordable yet, right? So just taking those things that you do every day and finding ways to use agents or automate those or take time back and give time back to your sales reps, you're going to see the value of it. You're going to see the throughput of it. And ultimately, that's what it's all about. And you got to grow from there. So, getting your foot in the door, just getting started, getting your feet wet is the most important part. And you don't have to do anything crazy to do it. So that's what I try to tell people all the time if you're starting from zero and trying to get your foot in the door with AI.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that, Josh, is I like the concept of units of work, right? Or with the end in mind, what are the steps to get there, right? And you have to be able to map out the process and the steps to get there without AI and pretend like it doesn't exist. How would a human do it? What are the steps? What is the fastest way to success in like my clicks or whatever it may be? and then pick out one of those units of work and say, and just try to have the agent do it. And then hopefully they'll show you that they can do it, and then pick out another unit of work and try them to execute that action. And then all of a sudden you start building towards them running a process end to end.
I'll add to this, Tim and Josh. I mean, I don't think everyone understands how ChatGPT came along. It was basically bots that had their work checked by humans to see how well they were performing in the task that they were given. So it was humans judging whether or not the agents were good enough and try to emulate humans. And one of the good example that I can give you is a company that actually Salesforce acquired, Qualified. Qualified, great chatbot tool, pipeline generation tool actually that I've used extensively in different companies. They picked their best SDR and they built an agent that was emulating their best SDR. And it took several quarters for them to crack that equation, but they did it and they did it well, arguably well enough for Salesforce to acquire them over time. So the bots or the AI is really an enhancement on what we are doing, and we have to look at ourselves and what we have mastered and get it a little further. You'll be
Johan,
surprised with that.
and I'm sure to get to that end result, it wasn't a one and done. You said it was over multiple quarters. They're iterating constantly, making it better. And so that's the other thing too, is the first output that you have, I would expect that you need to iterate it and make it a little bit better. And that goes for, every one of us, every company too. There's things you can do better, continuing to use that feedback loop. And I think that that's so important for agents as well.
Totally. And for the supply chain space, I mean, you guys understand the theory of constraints pretty well, I'm pretty sure. You have a supply chain, there are specific things that are really slowing the processes down. You dedicate as much of the resource as you can to eliminate that roadblock. Do that. Focus on one very specific thing at a time, and you'll be probably happy with the outcome.
So we only have a few minutes left here. I want to end on a thought. We talked about kind of what our first steps for anyone who's looking at starting to use AI. We've talked about kind of how to prove ROI using AI agents. One topic that has consistently come up for me, at least in discussions over the last 6 months, AI versus machine learning. We've had machine learning for a long time. But now AI, the advent of AI was, Josh, would you say a couple of years ago, 3, 4 years ago? What's the difference and why does it matter? And it's kind of an open-ended question. And it's, I'm going to say kind of I think it's kind of a challenging one to talk about. But I did want to kind of hear your thoughts and see what we can talk about here with only 7 minutes left.
It's an interesting question, Mike. It's something that, I'll be honest, I don't run into as much. So I would love to hear your perspective on it too, and what you've heard from your customers. And so when I think about AI and I think about machine learning, the way that I rationalize it in my mind is, machine learning is something that I think is kind of like the underlying sense of that AI. We talk a little bit about making your AI smarter, and we talked a little bit about iterating on your AI for enhancements. Your AI learns from your past experience. That's just the inherent nature of how those LLM works and how AI is designed to work in kind of that agentic format. So, if I always pick my winning lottery ticket numbers to be the same thing, I would hope that my AI agent picks those numbers every time as well, because that's what I built it for. And so I think that that is kind of the underlying process for AI, which is learning from that past experience, hence machine learning. So that's the way that I've always rationalized it in my mind, but I'm always open to new perspectives. So Mike and Tim, I'd love to hear, and Johan, like what your experience has been with it, some of the ways that your customers are thinking about it, and most importantly, what your perspective is on it.
Yeah, for me, I think it is Agreed. Very much correlated. And AI is kind of the next evolution of machine learning, right? We've had machine learning, but you still had to take those learnings and go execute them as a human. And now we've taken it one step forward where you have an AI agent that can go execute tasks and things of that nature based off of those machine learnings and kind of running something end to end. So I think that's kind of in my mind, how I differentiate and see the evolution of the two.
For me, is machine learning is a subset of AI. Machine learning is how it learns and how it feeds the information to the AI. Before, when you're training, for example, Google trained their algorithm, machine learning algorithm to recognize images. He had to add four legs and fur and this and that, and it will try to associate that with the animals, and it would go over many, many, many images in order to get there. AI and LLMs have made it way faster and way smarter to be able to not go through all of these iterations in order to get to the answer faster. So AI is basically the next, well, I'm not saying anything that is no one knows, the next frontier of whatever computer science has been throwing at us in the last 20 years.
So, Johan, let me ask you something here, and it's a bit of a loaded question, so apologize in advance. It sounds like you see AI as more of an evolution rather than a revolution, or do I have that backwards?
No, revolution, because they are, some of the greatest scientists in the
Hmm.
world would say things saying, I believe it works that way, but I can't prove it to you right now because the technology doesn't allow me to do that. And I think this is what AI is solving right now. Everyone knew, I mean, Skynet, I mean, you have all watched this stuff. I mean, everyone knows where we're heading. Hopefully, it's not Skynet, but everyone knows that there are so many capabilities, so many things that can be done with computers. We never had the technology in order to get there yet. Now we do. The computer can understand things and understand also the evolution of AI. At first it was text, and both ChatGPT and Claude sucked with images. It was terrible. Now it's not the case anymore. Gemini was better at multimodal, but now it's not the case anymore. I mean, you have, I am just started testing design with Claude. It's amazing what it can do. I can literally now, and Mike, you're going to like this. When you are talking to a designer and you are, I want this and I want that and a little more of this and less of that, and they are looking at you like you're speaking Mandarin. Now I can literally put in Google AI Studio or Cloud and have this is what I'm looking for, and I can get it 90% there for the designer. It was not possible before. When he didn't understand language, couldn't make it happen. When he didn't understand images, he didn't make it happen, even with machine learning. So now it's a revolution. It really is.
I agree. Totally agree. We only got a couple minutes here, so any final, you know, ending thoughts? Tim, let's go ahead and start with you.
Sure. Yeah. What I was just thinking about over the past 5 minutes or so is we keep saying, oh, we'll get all this time back to go all these cool strategic things. I think to also make it motivating to a company, to employees to really dive in is to map out what those are too, right? Why does it make sense to have AI start solving all of these problems and really map out and put goals around what you will do with that free time to make it more exciting to get there and have that end goal in mind. So I think it makes it kind of a wholesome view of what you're trying to accomplish. But it's really exciting.
Johan, any closing thoughts?
Don't outsource your thinking and don't pretend you know things that you don't know. Because, if if I were to be a chef right now, a Michelin star chef, I would have been able to do it with all of the YouTube videos that are showing me how to cook well. But it goes way beyond this. There are skills that takes really, really years to acquire. So make sure you have those skills, and AI will enhance whatever it is that you want to do. Don't pretend that. I'll say that for us, Mike. Everyone thinks that they know marketing. Well, it's a little more complicated than asking Claude
Mhm.
for a new homepage, right? There are quite a few things that go into it.
And finally, Josh, closing thoughts.
Yeah, one thing I try to keep in mind with all of this is we're all figuring it out together, right? I know AI can be overwhelming. I know it can be overwhelming as you look to implement it within your company, within your enterprise. But listen, we're all figuring it out together. And so, it's trial and error. And just like, life, nothing's perfect. So take your time, take it in those bite-sized chunks. If it doesn't work out the first time, reassess, regroup, and then try it again because it's going to be around for a while. But like I said, I mean, I think it was 2023, Mike, is when I first saw it. So it's still pretty infant.
Definitely. Well, thank you to the three of you. We're perfect timing. We're up on top of the hour here. So thank you to the three of you for joining us today and being a part of it. And thank you to everyone who attended and participated and engaged with the polls and the questions that we got. The recording will be available in the next couple of days. We'll be sending it out via email as well as putting up clips on social media and such. So make sure you're following Revenova, following Salesforce, and following SalesIntel on a variety of social media channels, LinkedIn, YouTube, everywhere else, right? So thank you so much for everyone for joining, and we will see you soon.
Thanks all.